not only to protect women from violence, but also to give them more economic empowerment. Well, I'm joined now by Seehaam Samaai from the Women's Legal Centre. Good evening. Thank you so much for your time. First of all, this plan to have 30 GBV hotspots, it sounds like it's a way to target the areas where most cases are reported and ensure that there's someone there to receive a woman who often walks into a police station utterly traumatized, to be met with blank stares and very little support. Is this a step in the right direction?
I'm going to welcome, what the minister has highlighted in terms of identifying the 30 hotspots. But I have to admit that this is not something new. If every year, when you look back into 16 days of activism, you will see that there's always either 16 or 20 or 30 hotspots that have been identified. And so in terms of their statistics, they are supposed to identify hotspots. So for us, that is nothing new. What we want to know is it's around the actual enforcement and implementation of the actual laws that deals with gender-based violence. Whether or not it's the Sexual Offences Act, whether or not it's the Domestic Violence Act, protection of harassment. And I think that the challenge that we do have is that we need to be able to ensure, and this is what the minister is not saying, yes, you can have a desk, but we need to promote a victim-centered justice system. And what does that mean? It means that women at the end of the day need to be empowered to be able to take matters through the particular justice system. And how do we reduce secondary victimization? And how do we, and also in addition to that, we need to know, has this process been costed and resourced as well as then being implemented? Because at the end of the day, every year during 16 days of activism, there will be 16 hotspots that is identified. What we want to see is what has happened in relation to those 16, for example, hotspots. What is there needs to be proper monitoring, there needs to be proper strengthening, and also partnerships between different government departments. So what we would like to know from government is, or at least from SAPS, how are you going to work with, for example, the NPA, the Department of Social Development, etc., because to be able to deal with the scourge of gender-based violence, and also to ensure that there is prevention and that there is a reduction in the amount of GBV that is being reported, or even those that are not reported, because we all know that there is a lot of matters that are still not being reported.
Absolutely.
Those are the matters that we need to know. And so what the minister has told us, and I mean, it's very sad to see all the SAPS police officers and, that have contracted COVID. But what we need to know also then, what are they putting in place to ensure that that is reduced? It is not tell us.
Sure.
This is what happened.
You know, it was over a year ago with the death of Uyinene Mrwetyana, and every now and then there are these awful cases that particularly rise to the public attention. We know that GBV is reality every single day in this country, sadly. It seems that the commitment is there. I mean, just listening to what the President said to the UN, he says, South Africa is proud to be a member of the UN's Generation Equality Campaign, has prioritised the eradication of gender-based violence and femicide. At a continental level, we're working to finalise and adopt an AU Convention on Violence Against Women during the course of this year. Now, I think it was over a year ago that the President was already saying all the right things. Are you telling me you have seen no real shift in how traumatised and abused and hurt women are dealt with when they get into the police structures? Or have you seen some progress?
Well, I mean, we can say that there has been, for example, that women would be able to access. Also with regard to, for example, during the lockdown period, there has been possibly a focus, because there was a direction that came from the President, also in terms of the minister. But as we filter down, we also know that we need to, work with, or we need to be able to see whether or not police officers, reduce secondary victimization, as, victims do come to the police stations. And I don't think that there has been a fundamental shift. Also, in addition to that, we all know that we have globally competitive legal framework, which is aligned to international and regional obligations. And so we should not say the same thing all the time. We know that there's a duty to take positive measures to respect and promote the Bill of Rights and actions calling upon, government to be able to ensure that there's gender sensitive as well as effective measures put in place. Now, we want to know, what is that? What are those measures? Don't tell us that there are just 30 hotspots. We need to know more than just a help desk. We want to know in terms of the numbers, in terms of whether or not there's going to be additional staff that is going to be given, in terms of those particular hotspots. We need to be able to know, what support is going to be given in terms of the victims. We need to be able to bridge that gap between the legal framework as well as implementation. And we are still stuck in terms of, the broader framework in terms of things that is already there. And also saying that, we do have this 30 hotspots. What we want is at the end of the day is accountability in relation to implementation, because we have the laws and we need to be able to, government or even SAPs need to tell us what they are going to do and what their targets are. If you say that Delft, for example, is one of the highest, give us the statistics, tell us what is going to happen so that we can, as citizens, or even, to be able to collectively keep government also accountable in relation to that.
You're right, it's all about accountability and implementation. Thank you very much for giving us such a clear idea of what still needs to be done. That was Seehaam Samaai from the Women's Legal Centre.